One year, my family and I took a vacation to Disneyland and stayed overnight in one of the hotels they have at the park. It was one of the oldest ones they had and was built back in the 1950s. Even though it was older, the building was stunningly beautiful with a classic design. My family and I checked in and then made our way through the lobby to the elevator. The bellman and my parents were making small talk, and he casually asked if we had heard that the hotel was haunted. He then went on to tell us a bunch of scary paranormal experiences he had since started working there. Apparently, the ghost was a man who died building the theme park many years ago. The legend was that the man was so angry that so many people got to enjoy the park that cost him his life. That was why he tried getting revenge by spooking hotel guests. I thought the story was interesting, but I was pretty skeptical and didn't believe that ghosts were real. But my younger brother was pretty creeped out, and my parents had to comfort him by telling him that there were no such thing as ghosts. After dropping our stuff in our hotel room, we headed to the park where we spent the day. We came back to our room pretty late at night. My parents and little brother wanted to call it a day and go to bed, but I wanted to get a workout in. There was an exercise room on the main floor, and I decided to check it out. My parents were fine with me going as long as I got back before midnight. I left the room and made my way to the elevator. The bellman had gone home and it was just me in the elevator. I pressed the button for the main floor and then gasped as I felt a wave of ice-cold air come over me. I looked around to see if there was an air vent or something that caused the draft, but I didn't see anything. A shiver ran down my spine, and I was relieved when the elevator doors finally opened and I could get out. The lobby was mostly vacant except for some staff members running the front desk. The exercise room was at the very end of the hallway. When I got there, I was excited to see that it was empty and I would have the whole room to myself. I picked a treadmill and started it up. It was about 10 minutes into my workout when all of a sudden a song came blasting on the speakers full volume. There had been no music playing the entire time, so the music came as a complete shock, and it nearly made me fall off the treadmill. The song was old and creepy and sounded like something from 50 years ago. I scrambled around trying to figure out how to turn it off, but then the music stopped as quickly as it had started. My heart was pounding. Was somebody playing a trick on me? Had it been some sort of technical error? Maybe the music was on some sort of timer that got messed up. I was so shaken that I considered going back to the hotel room, but I was determined to finish up my workout. I moved over to the weight section and selected 2 dumbbells. After I was done lifting one, I placed the weight down and reached for the second weight, but my fingers touched nothing. I looked down to where I had left the weight, but there was nothing there. The weight had been placed back on the rack where it was before. I felt my stomach drop as a strange sensation came over me. The bellman had been right. This place was definitely haunted. I grabbed my stuff and left the exercise room, eager to get back to my family. I was too scared to get in the elevator again, so I decided to take the stairs. We were on the 12th floor, so this was going to be a bit of a trip. I was on the 3rd floor when I began to hear music playing. It was the same old, creepy song that was in the exercise room. I began climbing the stairs faster and heard a man's laughter right behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. I kept going up, moving as fast as I could. Then I heard a voice again. It said, "You better run." This time I didn't look back. I just kept going until I reached the hotel room. I've never been back to the hotel since, and I'm so glad that our family only spent one night there. I used to work at Disneyland, and all the employees there knew the story of a gruesome death that had once taken place there. It was the year 1966, and a 19-year-old boy decided he was going to sneak into the park. His name was Thomas Cleveland. He jumped over a fence and climbed onto the monorail track. The monorail is a transportation system that takes guests from one section of the park to another. A security guard saw what the boy was doing and urged him to get down, but he didn't listen. When he tried to run away, he was hit by the monorail, which was going at a fast pace. He was dragged nearly 50 feet before the monorail could stop. When I worked at Disneyland, I would often be there late at night to make sure everything was running smoothly and to help out in any way I was needed. I loved that even at night, there was always lots of buzz and activity going on. There was always a sense of energy and excitement in the air. I was walking along the main section of the park, the tracks of the monorail out in the distance. I was looking at the tracks when all of a sudden I saw a figure clinging to the tracks. He hoisted himself up and then climbed to his feet. I glanced down at my phone to check the time and my heart nearly stopped. There was still a little more than an hour before the park officially closed. This meant that the monorail would still be running. I could barely believe my eyes and started sprinting to the tracks as fast as my feet would carry me. I began screaming at the figure to get down, but they only continued to stare to the side. It was as if they were waiting to get run over. To my absolute horror, I heard the monorail and saw it approaching in the distance. I screamed as loud as I could, begging the figure to get down. The monorail got closer and closer until it was only about a foot away from the figure when all of a sudden the figure disappeared into thin air. I was speechless as I watched the monorail continue on its way. To this day, I believe the figure was that of Thomas Cleveland, who had come back to haunt the trails. I'll never doubt that shots ever exist again. When I was younger, I went on a trip to Disneyland with my class. There were about 40 of us students and around 8 teachers that came along. We were instructed to stay with our group and not run off under any circumstances. I had never been to Disneyland before, so I was very excited. It was a very hot day and the park was completely packed. My classmates were all wearing bright yellow shirts with our school's name on it, so we would be easier to identify by our teachers. I was careful to stay with my group as we went through the check-in process and made our way into the park. There was so much activity around us, from people screaming on nearby roller coasters to babies crying and lots of children running around. We came to a clearing and I could finally see the attraction I had been most excited about, Cinderella's Castle. I paused to admire it, my mouth open in shock over how dazzling it was. It was really just as gorgeous as it looked on TV. I took my eyes off of the castle and looked around. I was unsettled to realize I could no longer see my group. I ran ahead to see if I could catch up with them, my eyes searching for any sign of the yellow shirts, but I saw no one I recognized. My heart began to beat faster, and I felt myself going into panic mode. I didn't carry a cell phone at the time, and I had no idea how to get into contact with my teachers. I felt tears forming in my eyes as I walked around in circles, having a full-blown anxiety attack. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was a middle-aged man wearing a black t-shirt, a baseball cap, and jeans. He had a concerned look on his face and asked me if I was lost. I told him that I was, and he told me that there was a park employee and he could help me get reunited with my classmates. He told me to follow him and I did, desperate for any help I could get. We walked and walked until we reached a more secluded section of the park. The man led me into an unmarked building that was dimly lit. I began to get a bad feeling in my chest as I looked around and saw that I didn't see anyone in the halls. I decided to trust my gut feeling and I took off running in the opposite direction of the man towards the exit of the building. The man chased me, calling for me to come back, but I just kept running. I got out of the building and ran through the streets until I reached the main section of the park and passed an employee with a Disneyland logo on their shirt. I told them I needed help and they guided me to a station where there were phones and other employees. Luckily, they were able to reunite me with my group. I still wonder what would have happened to me if I had kept following that man. Have you ever had a really strange time at Disneyland? Drop a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, sleep tight.